Hello pandas! How about some brass scrapping hacks? If you're out to ensure you're equipped with the knowledge you need to make the most money scrapping metal, well, you're in the right place. So sit tight, we're gonna cover everything about recycling this bright golden beauty, where to find it, how to identify it, and how to get paid for it. Today's scrap metal tips and tricks for beginners video will conclude the trilogy of the most common metals you're likely to find while out scrapping, and to save time, it'll build on what we've covered in the previous two. If you've watched the copper video, you'll know all about cleaning and sorting your material, how to negotiate for the best price, and when the best time is to cash out, while the aluminum one expressed the importance of knowing the value of your time. There are links in the description down below if you've missed them, so with that in mind, let's get down to brass tacks. As a scrapper, brass is perhaps my favorite metal for several reasons. I come across it a lot, and I just think it's really cool. It's nearly as valuable as copper, because it is copper, alloyed with a small percentage of zinc. This is why the two of them share many of the same useful properties, such as electric and thermal conductivity, high corrosion resistance, and a relatively low melting point, making them malleable and easy to recycle. Copper is superior in all of these, but where brass really shines is that it's denser and tougher. So while it would make terrible wire, it's better suited to things like casting and milling. In addition, the human obsession with gold has done well for brass, and a lot of people find beauty in the warm golden glow of polished brass ornamentation. For these reasons, I found brass to be far more common in my scrap hunting than copper. Everyone and their goldfish knows that copper is valuable and exactly where to find it, so it rarely ends up in the waste stream. Brass, on the other hand, flies under the radar, often in big, heavy chunks, hidden by a layer of paint or patina or chrome plating. But once you know where to look for it, you'll start finding it everywhere. How about some examples? Faucet heads, threaded hose connectors, propane fittings, the float arm in your toilet, both ends of an electrical plug, light fixtures, light switch pulls, doorknobs, drawer knobs, doorknob plates, hammered plates, fireplace tools, cheap jewelry, candlesticks, bullet casings, keys, handrails, bed frames, cast figurines, large and small. Noticing any themes? If it involves plumbing or electrical, it probably has brass somewhere. It takes practice to find and identify it, but you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. And here's a tip to help speed you along. Remember how I said it often hides in plain sight? Well, chrome plating is pretty common for these chunks of money, but if you grab every silver-looking piece of plumbing you find, you'll end up with a bucket full of plastic and pot metal faucet heads pretty quickly. The quickest way to tell the difference is to take a grinder and cut into it, revealing the color underneath. When you see that sparkling gold, you'll know. But if you don't have a grinder, you can do the same thing with a file. If, however, you're out and about and you don't just happen to keep a file in your pocket at all times, the easiest way to do the exact same thing is find a rock or a piece of pavement or whatever and just scrape the material against it until you see what it's made of. On a faucet, you'll have to do it to each different part of it because this stuff isn't a cheap material, so people try to use as little as possible. So, as with copper and aluminum, the percentage of contaminants determines the grade, so you'll want to sort it by grade to get the most money. You'll probably have 3 grades: clean brass, tap brass, and dirty brass. There's also red brass, but we'll circle back to that. Once you've called your scrapyard and found out who pays the best and how they want it sorted, you'll want to clean your material so you can upgrade the value as much as possible. Similar to aluminum, the price difference between dirty and clean is enormous. But brass is much heavier and the price per pound is much higher, so you'll really want to do your best to get all of the screws and rubber O-rings and bits of plastic off. However, what you will find with faucet heads in particular is that disassembling them completely can be extremely time-consuming. There's a million different styles and they all try to look smooth and clean and pleasing to the eye, which means using hidden fasteners and hardware to hold them all together. Each one is a new nightmare of tiny seized Allen keys, tiny snap rings, press fit rotating sleeves, inner O-rings, and plastic ball joints. I'll admit that yes, there is a fun factor to taking them each apart like an intricate puzzle, but you need to know when you're spending more time than it's worth. Yes, you'll get twice as much after you get all the plastic out. But if you just spent 30 minutes turning a $1 piece of dirty brass into a $2 piece of clean, well, all I can say is I hope you enjoyed yourself. My point is, like with the aluminum, you'll be a happier and more profitable scrapper if you learn what a waste of time looks like. God. There are tricks, of course, because brass is a malleable metal. If you don't have to put it back together, you sure don't need to be gentle. If I had a metal bandsaw, I could get all my brass clean. A cutting wheel and a vise can do a lot of the same work. And even a hammer can speed things up, if that's all you've got. Just remember that if you're gonna bail, bail early. Now, we mentioned red brass. Red brass is what it sounds like. It's brass, but it's got sort of a rosy hue because it's got a higher copper content. And yes, that makes it worth more. For that reason, if you have red brass, then yes, put them in a separate bucket. But in all my years of doing this, I've never had more than a couple pieces of red brass, so I make no special effort to separate them. YMMV. Final point to brass, and I'm only bringing this up because if I don't, people will comment and say I left it out. The plugs. The ones you cut off power cords. Yes, the tiny forks that stick out of them are almost always brass, and yes, they are easy to remove. Let me show you what that looks like.
2 pairs of pliers, bend them in separate directions, and there you go.
Now, brass floats between $1 and $2 a pound. You want to see what a pound looks like? Forget it. No. I'm already 6 minutes in and I have 0.6 of an ounce. Forget it. At that rate, that's like 50 cents an hour. Now, if that seems like something you want to do while you're watching Netflix or whatever, I'm not going to tell you not to. But for me, it hurts my wrists and I wouldn't even let one of the kids do it. I'm just saving them up in a bucket because I want to experiment on better, faster ways to clean them out all at once. So that's everything you need to know to make some money scrapping brass. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and say hi in the comments down below because it really helps with the YouTube stuff. If you've thought of any brass scrapping tips I may have missed, please share them down below, as well as any questions you may have about scrapping in general or specific metals to scrap, and I'll do my best to help. As always, thanks for watching. Leave it better than you found it. Keep doing the thing.